What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video, and today it is day 2 of this mock draft with trades, just like the NFL draft. This will be rounds 2 and 3. Check out round 1 if you did not do so already. Below my face is my board. Below that are all the great ways to get involved in the community. Let's get into this. Let's have some fun. Still more stories to tell about the Senior Bowl, so it's going to be a very nice and enjoyable process here for us. Of course, I had my big announcement as well on my 2-round mock draft with no trades earlier this week. So if you guys did see that announcement, feel free to go check that out because it basically was the biggest news in show history. It's going to be a little bit underwhelming for you, but it honestly means that the show is going to be part of my entire life forever. So hop on the hype train. It's going to continue going. Let's do it. So we're going to do a quick little recap here. Of course, again, for those of y'all who are listening to the audio version of this, or have visual impairment, feel free to listen to the original video. It's going to be a lot more enjoyable. But we had Washington trade out. It was one of those theories that I've wanted to conduct for a hot minute now. And now that the draft order is essentially set, we can have a little bit more creative liberty. Of course, the Patriots pass on a quarterback. Now, we do see a couple ones that will be available, which is cool. We had Arizona do a very short-range trade here with New York. Again, some pushback on that. We had some people wanting to go for the Falcons or maybe even another team as well. But for me, I just saw that extra second-round pick is extremely valuable, and it was expendable, essentially, for New York. I think it was just a great opportunity for the team to be able to focus on, maybe being a little bit more disciplined with that second-round pick rather than, firing from the hip and getting 2 dudes, get Drake Maye, and then move on from there. But of course, the Cardinals trade back and then kick Paris Johnson back to left tackle, get the best tackle in the draft, in Tulise Fuaga. But of course, we had some fallers here. Of course, part of that trade with the Washington Commanders was Amarius Mims. I don't know why it says via Minnesota. Actually, yes. So actually, I lied. We traded back with Washington to Vegas' spot. And then we traded back up with Washington so they could snipe a star tackle. I think Sam Howell still could be the guy. This is a way of acquiring future first-round draft capital, as well as still being able to arm your team with a super weapon in Amarius Mims. Of course, part of that trade back is Jared Verse moving back to that original Raider spot where the Commanders were to select Jared Verse. So, continuing on, I'm only going to mention those trades. We had a small trade here with Dallas and Buffalo, so Buffalo can go up and get their guy. They've done it 2 first rounds essentially in a row, which is great. Cooper DeJean. Then, of course, we have the Buffalo Bills pick that was traded to the Cowboys, then being traded again. So the Cowboys traded back twice, and the Kansas City Chiefs move up to select Brian Thomas Jr. Of course, Dallas, after a double trade down, goes for Graham Barton. And then at pick 32, San Fran makes a minute trade in division to allow the Cardinals to get Keon Coleman. Yes, in-division trades sound weird, but they're becoming more and more common. Certain teams just see proper value in other areas, and Arizona has some pretty early picks. So they got an early 4th for it, which is approximately the right value for that range. So let's get right into this. Again, we're going to be going up until pick 100, so we have a lot of ground to cover. At pick 33 for the Carolina Panthers, debating on a trade back here. Could test out Jordan Morgan as a tackle, but I think he lost his ability to really command respect as a tackle at the Senior Bowl. Subpar arms and just not really that great of a week. So a little bit worrisome there. Was hoping that maybe we could get a future at tackle, but I'm looking right now at A.D. Mitchell as well as Xavier Legette. But Xavier Legette didn't have as good of a week as I expected either. He's a little bit inconsistent. That's my one issue with him. He'll have some beautiful routes, and so there's just other plays where it almost feels like he's uncomfortable being his best self. That's why I wouldn't take him at 33. Possible opportunity for a move down, of course, but I think A.D. Mitchell is extremely underrated. I'm going to be digging into the tape on him after I finally finish up my server job, which it's going to be this Saturday. So we're going to be digging into a lot of receiver tape because that requires a lot of patience. And I love watching receivers. So receivers, DBs, probably my 2 favorite positions to watch. A.D. Mitchell, he tore up most of the DBs I watched. And, he is single-handedly responsible for ruining a lot of the opinions that I had on certain corners. So proud of him. He could be a true wide receiver 1 on this team at 6'4", 200 pounds. Hopefully he just stays consistently healthy. But at pick 34 for the New England Patriots, you could go offensive tackle here. I don't know if they bring back Owenu. He had a little bit of a down year, even though he still is pretty damn solid, above average at 71 PFF grade. That's not the end all be all. We all know. I love PFF guys, but we all kind of know that. I do think Kingsley Suamataia is a dark horse pick for this team, but without a quarterback, it's very hard to justify passing on, going on a quarterback. I don't know if any of the tackles are truly starter quality yet. I do know for the Niners, I would heavily consider going after Kingsley, but that's because the Niners have very little in terms of holes. And the Patriots, I would trust them going in free agency and being able to take advantage of the QBs at the moment. Bo Nix is the best day one when you encompass age, injury. Injury is kind of the big one between him and Michael Penix, mobility, etc. People think J.J. McCarthy is going to be a top 10 pick. Like, that's what the rumors are. So this very well, if he does end up being here, might end up being the pick. But I think Bo Nix fits the Patriots just a little bit better than JJ because he has that day one impact. And I trust what he can do with Marvin Harrison Jr. I have not seen JJ elevate his weapons the way I saw Bo Nix really use Troy Franklin to his best ability. So Bo Nix is going to get his next Troy Franklin there in New England with Marvin Harrison Jr. At pick 35 for the San Francisco 49ers, just telegraph this move. I'm going Kingsley Suamataia. He has a former year of experience at right tackle. Also, I believe was brought to Oregon as a right tackle. So he is going to have that versatility of being right and left. And he needs a little bit more development, but who better to train than your good old boy, Trent Williams. At pick 36 for the Washington Commanders, traded back and then traded up to be able to select star right tackle Amarius Mims. If you want to, you could take a QB here and have a QB battle. That's not out of the realm of possibility. You could, of course, go after another tackle here in Karan Ahmedjadjeh and just absolutely feast. But you can also look at the edge rushers available, and there's some really good ones. You got Chris Braswell, Jonah Ellis, Darius Robinson, and Chop Robinson. I kind of have this awesome idea of pairing Darius and Chop together. Kind of having two Robinsons would be sick. This is, again, potentially thinking about the future if Sam Howell is the quarterback. We already have one of the tackles there. Could, again, wait for another one. Darius Robinson is extremely intriguing to me. At 286, it's very hard to project him. But at 296, I said this guy needs to lose 10 to 15 pounds, and he's going to be a beast. He lost 10 pounds, and he looks like a beast. I think maybe you lose maybe another 5 pounds, gain a little more edge bend, a little more flexibility, and he could be something truly special. So I have Darius Robinson now as my number, where's he at, 30 player on my board, just because you don't find guys who have that type of offseason and that type of size with that type of production that Darius Robinson had in the Senior Bowl. He was one of the best players there, if not the best, and that's very hard to come by when you are of that size and that stature to have that ability to win one-on-one so well. So Darius Robinson will be that selection. At pick 37, the Chargers are actually looking to trade one of their stars in Khalil Mack. Now, they traded a second-round pick for him a while ago. He's a bit older, coming off a 17-sack season, but I don't think he will ever garner a second-round pick. But we are going to trade him in this just because it makes sense, right? If they're going to trade, they're literally having a video, like, honoring him. So I just have to put that out there. Where's he at? Where's the edge rusher group at? Okay, so Khalil Mack is going to be part of this trade. The question is, with whom? I think that technically you could send him back to, you could send him back to the NFC North by sending him to the Minnesota Vikings and pair him up with Jared Verse. That's a pretty cap smart move, or not cap smart, but draft capital efficient move there for the Vikings. Now, I also think they're in the mood for a quarterback, so they might be a little bit in the air in terms of what they're looking for with their picks. Now, other teams that could be looking for maybe a final piece to the puzzle, of course, the Eagles can always lurk and, grab him for depth, but that just doesn't seem very fiscally smart in my opinion. Could send him back to Chicago. I mean, we did kind of just end up sending our second pick for Rome Odunze. It's not out of the realm of possibility to just send him back and have him be that edge too as you develop another edge rusher. And you know what? Why not? I don't think there's many teams that fit better. I mean, you could talk about the Detroit Lions, but we already ended up taking an edge rusher in the first. I think the Bears are a sneaky good option for this. So we got to find where they're at. They don't have too many picks, so I don't think that you're going to be garnering very much. But I think that 122nd pick for someone who's 32 years old, going to need a contract, like it does kind of feel like that might be the move. There's no way that they actually think that it's between pick 75 and 110. Maybe if you're really bummed out, toss in a future sixth, but this is essentially going to be a compensatory fourth round pick. That makes sense for a 32-year-old, but this team does need that little extra mentorship for the young guys on the D line. He has experience in Chicago, and he's a great character. So that's why we're going to be sending him there. Of course, it's not going to affect the mock draft, but it does potentially shift what I want to do with the Chargers, because now we have an extra fourth round pick that we could, of course, leverage and be able to spend somewhere else. But with all these great edge rushers on the board, you could pair Tuli Tuipulotu up and have a nice edge rushing room, or we can end up just sitting, relaxing, and going after another route. Now, that route I've been looking at is this linebacker route with Junior Colson, because pairing him up with Jim Harbaugh makes a lot of sense. But in order to do that, there's too good of value for certain players on the board. So I think that there should be teams trying to move up for a quarterback, an offensive tackle, or even a wide receiver or an edge rusher. There's a lot of great options here. Now, looking at the teams that will be looking at quarterback, the Giants already got their own. Again, technically, you could say Washington would be in the mood for a quarterback competition, but I'm looking pretty heavily here at the Falcons. And Michael Penix would be a great choice. We know that. But, you could get that youth with a J.J. McCarthy. And since there is so much hype on him, it might be pretty smart to pair him up with Malik Neighbors. So that's actually what I'm going to do, because I do see multiple teams looking to try to lurk and get their guy. So that's going to be the move that we made. We're going to have Atlanta move up with the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are continuing to build draft capital. This will still give a good striking range chance of getting Junior Colson as well. And for this type of move up 5 spots, it should be roughly a early 4th round pick. Maybe you toss in a future 6th to add in a little bit of juice in there. But, the Falcons move up and select a player who people do think is going to go in the top 10. I don't. But J.J. McCarthy, he's young, he's developmental, he has some good mobility, he has the arm talent. And Morris, as well as Robinson, have been dealing with Matt Stafford for such a long time that maybe they can translate the skills and routine that they have experienced with such a great quarterback with great arm talent over to somebody who needs a little bit more development with their arm talent. Has great mobility as well. He has the it factor, just needs to end up working it out over the next year or two. Pick 38 for the Tennessee Titans. So we have ended up drafting a star tackle in Joe Alt, as we always do. I think wide receiver is a very smart move. Xavier Legette could take another dude from South Carolina, but I think very similarly of Xavier Legette the way I thought of Treylon Burks. It's just like someone who I thought was a physical freak and maybe disappointed me a little bit. I still like Treylon Burks a lot. I don't know why he's been in such a downturn, so to speak. But Xavier Legette is an awesome weapon. He just needs to be more consistent. If DeAndre Hopkins will remain in Tennessee, this might be a very, very smart move. 6'1", 220 pounds. Again, just needs to be more consistent. And I think this team needs to continue developing their receiving core. So that's what I'm going to do. Xavier Legette. Ladd McConkey was far superior, but you're talking about 5'11", 190 versus 6'1", 220. They're completely different receivers, and Ladd just, I don't think, complements properly in the system. Pick 39 for the New York Giants. Moved up, got Drake Maye. That's why we don't have a second round pick. Now, we could have waited, gotten Michael Penix. There's certain aspects that I wished maybe we could have done differently. I still think we're on a pretty damn good track right now, though. Looking at the offensive line, you could potentially take Jordan Morgan to play interior offensive line. That would not be a bad idea at all. Wide receiver, though, I still think you could certainly target a Ladd McConkey here. But again, you're starting to push an uncomfortable zone for me where you're having, once again, no true receiver one. I think a sneaky guy is Brendan Rice. Brendan Rice actually is a very talented receiver. I'm not going to take him here at 40, but he is actually top 64 on my board at the moment. ended up really starting to like him the more I saw him in person. Jordan Morgan might be valuable enough here because he has experience as a tackle. He's good on the move, and I think that he could end up working really well as an interior offensive lineman for this team. So we're going to go Jordan Morgan, guard out of Arizona. At pick 40, the Washington Commanders are back, and I am debating, just saying, let's get the two Robinsons because they complement each other to a T. Chop Robinson, super athletic, on the lighter side, about 250, and has a big learning curve before he can really be himself. While you have Darius Robinson, who's going to come in day one with the same power and all the same moves that we saw at the Senior Bowl. Chop could be a top 10 edge rusher in the NFL. I am pretty damn certain about that. If he hits it right, I don't know how many players will be better than Chop. So I think that's the right move. Of course, there's the counter where you can go Karan Amajaje, continue developing the offensive line. A lot of people say you want to go weapons here. We got to remember, just a year ago, we were talking about this receiving core as one of the best in the NFL. They had an off year. Maybe that's an outlier. Just have a little bit of faith, in my opinion, because you don't want to pass on potentially revamping your edge duo with arguably the best edge duo that you can have. Like Chop Robinson and Darius Robinson, if they both work out, could be like extravagant. And that's something that I would be willing to put my money on. Pick number 41 for the Green Bay Packers. In the first round, we ended up getting Ennis Rakestraw Jr., who is a phenomenal, very talented cornerback out of Missouri. Now, I'm still looking at those defensive backs here. Cam Kinchens is phenomenal. Tyler Nubin extremely underwhelmed me. Like, my top two safeties right now are Bullock and Kinchens. Nubin dropped quite a bit. So Kinchens is going to be probably the more enjoyable prospect in terms of the upside, more the attractive prospect, I should say. Bullock is super young. He is a bit lighter as well, 6'3", 190 versus, I believe Cam Kinchens is 6 foot 200. Like, much different build. Kalen Bullock, he's going to be someone who needs a bit more refinement, but I think he's a better player. Cam Kinchens has a higher ceiling because I think his inconsistencies got the best of him. And in the right defensive system, I could see him working out. Now, I know that the defensive system here is completely switched. You don't have Joe Barry anymore. Forgetting the dude's name, but Boston College's coach, he's actually gotten quite a few good players from that. Like, his secondary overperforms. So good for him. I'm actually going to take Cam Kinchens. I'm going to take the guy who I think could have the better career if everything goes well. Cam Kinchens could have been a top 10 pick if he ended up continuing to ascend. He had a stumble of a year. I'm going to take the chance on Cam Kinchens going back-to-back defensive backs, but one of them is a corner. One of them is a pure safety. At pick 42 for the Minnesota Vikings, Michael Penix Jr. is here. I think that's the right move. We traded back and got Jared Verse, got some extra picks as well. I think it was just pick 100 and something next year. So we're going to be going after Michael Penix here. I think he's the best quarterback left on the board. I think bringing Kirk Cousins back would be a very smart move. But even if you bring Kirk back, it might give Michael Penix a little bit of time to keep up at 100% health. There are rumors that he even slips to day 3. I'm not going to support that, but I think Michael Penix would be a great option for Minnesota because he takes a lot of shots, and this is a receiving core that I can trust taking a lot of shots. Ladd McConkey's still on the board. Very hard to see him slip really any bit further than this. But I'm looking at the Chargers. That could be a weapon they go after. Went after Brock Bowers in the first, though. It's hard to say they're going to go weapon, especially when there's so few legitimate Mike linebackers in this class. Ones that can actually command a field like a Mike linebacker at 6'3", 250, right? And he's from Michigan. And I think Michigan's DC decided to come over here as well. So we are going to be going Junior Colson for the Chargers. He also does have some good pass rushing upside. I like that about him. Like, he is not just pigeonholed as a run defender. He actually has some good coverage ability too. Very well balanced. He is my linebacker 1 in the class, except for if a Fangio system comes along, I would say Edger and Cooper could be the best. But it's not a great linebacker class, so that's why I have my issues with it. But at pick 44, the Raiders are back on the board, traded up into the top 2 to select Jayden Daniels and pair him back up with Antonio Pierce. Getsy gets another mobile quarterback. Hopefully he doesn't screw up that one. I'm going to be moving out of this pick because I just want to get a better set of picks. We spent so much. I think it's time to get some recuperation. Chris Jenkins would be a very solid option here. I mean, hell, we could even go after Karan Ahmedjadjeh and continue developing that line. But I'm just going to trust what's going to fall to us at that next pick. So looking at the guys who are available, I think Lad McConkey needs to come off the board. Whether it's this pick, the next one, like he needs to come off the board ASAP. Again, tackle-wise, Karan Ahmedjadjeh, almost impossible to pass on at this point for a team that might be looking for a tackle. The Bengals, I don't believe we took a tackle in the first. We took Byron Murphy. This is a prime opportunity for the Bengals to potentially develop an offensive tackle. The Rams, I think, should be getting a little bit aggressive here. I mean, there are teams that should be trying to bid for this pick. The Cowboys especially. Actually, we traded back a couple of times. I think the Cowboys would be very smart because we've already acquired a bunch of extra picks. Being able to move up and get a star left tackle like Karan, because I genuinely believe Karan is a superstar tackle with the right development. He needs probably half a year before he could be a true starter. But there's not that many left tackles in this class, and he's a really good one. A really good one. And looking at Dallas, we did do that double trade back. Look at all these picks that we acquired. A ton of them. So for a 12-spot trade, I could totally see pick 99 being a very, very solid compensation package. Maybe you toss in another pick in there. But I think this is the right move for both teams. I don't think Dallas has that many holes. You already addressed center. And that left tackle spot is super crucial. And Jerry's going to go get his guy. And the Vegas Raiders, you don't even have a third-round pick. This is a great way to be able to have both sides get exactly what they need and exactly what they want. Cowboys then select Karan Ahmedjadjeh out of Yale. So you got Graham Barton to play your center because he's going to be an elite center. And then we have Karan Ahmedjadjeh to play tackle as an elite level tackle. Pick number 45 for the New Orleans Saints ended up getting not a Marius Mims, but the Bama right tackle and J.C. Latham to play left tackle. With Lad McConkey here, it's hard to say no. It's another one of those players where it's like, damn, like I'm trying to get him off the board, but there's not that many teams that are that desperate for a wide receiver of that caliber or that specific archetype. I would say New Orleans might stay put here because Chris Jenkins is on the board. Chris Jenkins is my number 35 player in the class. Super versatile. This defensive interior does need help. Brian Breezy is a great addition, and he just needs a little bit more help. And I think Chris Jenkins is going to provide that. He's just super well balanced, 305 pounds, just overall a really good dude. Build through the trenches and then think about it later. At pick 46 for the Indianapolis Colts, we decided to go after Terrion Arnold in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I'm seeing some great edge rushers. Hard to pass on them. We had 4 guys with 7+ sacks, which means that you know what you're doing, but there's just no alpha in the room. I think Chris Braswell could potentially ascend into that category. Now, wide receiver wise, I know that we are thinking about potentially adding to that receiving core. Lad McConkey feels almost a little too similar to the role that I would want Josh Downs playing, just a pure separator, a little bit on the smaller side. Jalen Polk would be the more ideal candidate for me. And I'm looking at teams who might be able to snag Jalen Polk. I could see the Jaguars actually being a team that would snag Jalen. I mean, I'm trying to think. Brendan Rice, that wouldn't be a bad choice. We went after Michael Pittman's son. We could go after Jerry Rice's son if we do end up trading down. Again, the Bengals are lurking here. They could certainly try to go after a receiver as well after potentially losing T. Higgins. I think there's too many teams that might look for that wide receiver prototype. And so I'm going to go after the one that might be the better option, and that's Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk, he's 6'2", 204 pounds. He's super versatile after the catch as well. I just think he needs to be a little bit more consistent and a little bit more confident. Great build, somebody who you can build around, and I think that's a key factor that maybe we aren't factoring in enough. Pick 47, Arizona got this as part of their deal with the New York Giants. And so we have already drafted a star wide receiver, star defensive interior, as well as a star tackle. I think the best option for us right now, I think, is a trade down to get Lad McConkey off the board. But Looking at other positions, edge rusher, of course, you could go Jonah Ellis or Chris Braswell. I think BJ Ojolari is a super stud. He was a top 10 player for me last year, and not going to apologize for that at all. He's a great player. I could go another defensive interior here because this team could use multiple. Corner, of course. I'm not a huge fan of TJ Tampa. Kamari Lassiter is very versatile, though, and could be a pretty big asset. Dwight McLaughlin actually fits a Gannon defense really well, but I'd probably want to trade back before taking him. Like, just between us, that's probably where I'm going to end up thinking. I think I will trade out of this spot. Looking at teams I'll move up for Lad, I'm actually looking pretty heavily at the Philadelphia Eagles here. I know it's going to irritate the living hell out of people, but I think I'm going to move up with the Eagles regardless, and there's a different player I'm going to take with them because I do see that this guy should be extremely highly valued by other franchises because he fits a Fangio system almost too well. And I think pick 137 is proper value. It actually fills in a pretty solid gap right here as well with some more capital, and Arizona can use that to be able to get some good value there. So we have the Eagles moving up against super small trade value. Maybe if you want to toss in a future pick, do that. But the Eagles are not going to select Ladd McConkey, even though they met with him twice. I'm going to try to, we'll find it. I'm going to go Edgerrin Cooper, though, because I think he could actually end up being, if the Eagles trade back, it could end up being an early second selection for them. Edgerrin Cooper is the ideal Vic Fangio linebacker. He's 230, if not sub 230. He can actually blitz extremely well. He's going to be the AVG, but extremely upgraded. So he's going to be everything you'd ever want. It just literally is perfect for Fangio to a T. So that's the type of guy who I adore specifically for the Eagles. At pick 48 for the Jaguars, I actually might go Ladd McConkey. We ended up going after a corner in Quinion Mitchell in round 1. I know that's a bulky thing to go interior offensive line, especially with a guy who is as athletic as Christian Haynes. But Ladd McConkey being a true wide receiver 2 or potentially replacing Calvin Ridley, he doesn't have the same exact physical profile, but I think that he has the potential skill profile to beat out what Calvin Ridley was here. Actually, by the way, I'm going to need to remember that 3rd round pick for the Jaguars is actually the Colts pick. Because not the Colts, excuse me, the Falcons pick. So pray to God that I actually remember that this time. But the Bengals drafted Byron Murphy in the 1st round. Could see them try to go after a tackle here in Patrick Paul, who he had an up and down week. I don't think he was that talented, but I'm going to actually go after Jatavian Sanders. We're going to go one offensive, one defensive position. Jatavian's just my dream target for the Bengals in round 2, so it fits it perfectly. At pick 50 for the Cardinals, I'm going to go Kamari Lassiter here. Just get yourself a very versatile defensive back who's very smart, very field aware, which is a big surprise because that was honestly the exact opposite of what he was back in 2022, but I am always willing to be excited to see how he does here in 2024. Pick number 51 for the Los Angeles Rams. I think we went after a defensive back in round 1 in Nate Wiggins. So here, sitting at pick 51, left tackle Patrick Paul still here. I'm not over the moon about Patrick Paul again. Had his struggles there at the Senior Bowl. We've already addressed the defensive back position. Could look to see if we can upgrade interior or edge again. The options, I think, are better on day 2, or day 3, excuse me, or round 3. So one of the two. Just because Jonah Ellis is a little too small to complement Byron Young. You know, you're just going to essentially make running, especially a wide zone scheme, a lot easier. I do think a linebacker is an underrated position to target if you see someone like Edgerrin Cooper or Junior Colson on the board. Quarterback, sneaky position, but I just don't think anybody is boosting their stock enough to get that proper consideration. So this actually might be a trade out spot. I got Zach Frazier here, who is a very talented center. I could see a team try to jump the Bears for him. That'd be a dick move, but I don't really see that many teams that are that excited for a center. You know, if I'm the Lions, I'd be sitting and waiting because even though it'd be nice to stick it to the Bears, there's no real need to. So yeah, I don't really see anybody moving up for Zach Frazier in particular. Christian Haynes, though, should be moved up for. He's super athletic, a very underrated player. I don't understand why people I don't love him that much, but to be fair, PFF has him in their top 60, so that's okay. Other weapons that, like, I need a team to move up. I'm just debating on who a team is going to move up for. Chris Braswell is phenomenal. Looking at a team that could be going after an edge rusher, if I didn't take Leatu Latu, could have went after him with the Buccaneers. You know, Cowboys are a dark horse team, but we've already moved up with them. So, you know, that's the unfortunate thing. Sometimes you just don't have a partner to dance with. We've already gone after a corner. I think the Rams actually might end up going after Chris, though. He does have a proper build. 255 is okay to complement a 230 to 240 pound player. So we'll go Chris Braswell here. Wanted to get some good value, but ended up coming up empty. Pick 52 for the Chicago Bears. We got Khalil Mack. That's the big development in this. We ended up getting Khalil Mack, and we ended up getting Rome Odunze as well as Caleb Williams. We are going to be getting Zach Frazier because Lucas Patrick is up for a contract. Don't really want Cody Whitehair being the guy at center. So I'd rather him be the backup. Zach Frazier, the new center there for the Bears. Best center left on the board. Pick 53 for the Miami Dolphins. We went after Troy Fautanu, guard/tackle prospect out of Washington. Now, defensive interior. Y'all have been putting it out there quite a bit. And guess what? Let's just stay in Miami. We're going to go Leonard Taylor here. Tons of upside with him. Very untapped potential. Poorly used there at the U. So you're getting somebody who you're buying low, and you very well might be able to get an absolute steal. At pick 54 for the Philadelphia Eagles, we ended up moving up for our star linebacker. Breaks my heart that we couldn't get Ladd McConkey. Is what it is. Actually took a picture with Ladd too, so you know I love to flex that whenever I can. But we've gotten our star linebacker. We've gotten our star right tackle as well for the future. Yes, that's not an ideal pick, but it is a very Howie move. You can never disagree with that point. Cornerback, though, is a dark horse position to target. I love Dwight McGlothern. Cam Hart's a sneaky name as well. He'll probably be among the next 2 or 3 that I draft. Cam Hart, Dwight McGlothern, and probably TJ Tampa. Even though I'm not huge on TJ, still think that he is at least considerable in this range. Dwight McGlothern, very hard to pass on. But I really want to go Dwight McGlothern here. I really do. Looking at the edge rushers, I'm trying to see if there's anybody who is developmental enough. Marshawn Kneeland actually is someone that a lot of people love. That could be a dark horse pick for the Philadelphia Eagles. Brochmel has him as a top, I think it might even be a top 50 player. So that's that's pretty damn high praise. I think that Jermaine Burton is a dark horse candidate for this team. He brings everything you're looking at in terms of trying to replace Quez Watkins in terms of deep speed, but he's 6 foot, I think he's 6 foot 200 pounds. Yeah, 6 foot 195. And super smooth route runner, very aggressive. Someone that you're going to love having on your team, and he could be a true alpha dog. Ended up playing against him here and when he played at Calabasas. So, you know, have ties to him back in high school. Brennan Rice, another really solid option, but we got to see what's going to be there at pick 97. I'd prefer to take a swing on a defensive end or an edge rusher rather than going after a wide receiver at that point. So we're going to go Jermaine Burton out of Alabama. Kind of sad we didn't get to see him at the Senior Bowl, but he's still a phenomenal player. He's been top 32 on my board for a long time. He's sitting there at 25. At pick 55 for the Cleveland Browns, Tez Walker is literally just everything I'd ever want for the Browns to replace Donovan Peoples-Jones. So it's a pretty easy shoe-in. Pick 56 for the Vegas Raiders, part of that trade back with Dallas. Still could get a plethora of really good players. And I mean really good players here. Looking at the tackles, I do think Patrick Paul's worth taking a swing on at this point. You got Javon Foster here. I mean, hell, Roger Rosengarten isn't bad either. You know, there's some good choices here. There are some good choices here. Of course, Christian Haynes. If you want to develop the interior, I don't think that's a bad idea whatsoever. Running back's a very big dark horse position to target, but also corner. And we drafted a quarterback in round number 1. We got our 3rd round pick back. And I'm actually going to go after my star, my beloved Dwight McGlothern. If you use Dwight properly, I literally said he could be a top 10 corner in the NFL. He has that potential. So keep that in mind. He's somebody that is going to be much more of a long-term project, but if used properly, could be someone that makes instant returns. Pick number 57 for the Green Bay Packers. Now, looking at what we've already done, corner, safety. The next position to target is going to be running back, tackle, or linebacker. And looking at the linebackers available, I don't think anybody separated themselves enough to garner the respect. Especially, like, I love Peyton Wilson, but injury concerns is not going to be the type of trait I'm looking for to bring in a linebacker because I have injuries in my linebacking core. That just doesn't make any sense. So looking at the best choices, you could even go defensive interior here, like Roro, McKinley, Jackson, dark horse position to target. I'm actually going to look at running back. I'm going to get the best one on the board. I think Trey Benson is a stud. I don't know why people are not liking him enough. Audric Estime, I think, might be the best fit for Green Bay, but sometimes talent trumps pure fit. And we're going to go Trey Benson. Some people, including Marcus Whitman, think that he could even be Jonathan Taylor, but that's a bit of high praise even from me. Pick number 58 for the Buccaneers, drafted Laiatu Latu in round number 1. Looking at the interior offensive lineman available, it's hard to say no to Christian Haynes. He is a top 15 player on my board. Maybe he might be in the 20s now. He is, top 20 player on my board, and you're getting the proper value of him here at 58, drafting another guard in round 2. Pick 59 for the Houston Texans. So we drafted, I will admit, probably should have ended up going after Jazon Newton. And also, to be fair, I don't think that if I swap these two picks, anybody would be that mad. So Jazon Newton probably should have been the pick, but it was Tavondre Sweat. Doesn't really fit the scheme, but y'all continue telling me that. Love you for it. Corner 2, probably a position I'd look at. Linebacker, probably a position I'd look at. I think Peyton Wilson would be he would be definitely DeMeco Ryans type of guy. I do think Jonah Ellis is the best value at this pick. Adisa Isaac as well. You got Javon Solomon, Xavier Thomas, even though Xavier shrunk down to as big as Jonah Ellis. I think Jonah Ellis could work here. Grenard, great. That's a great edge too. But when you think about who complements Will Anderson the best, I mean, Jonah Ellis is the exact same profile. I literally have him listed. My short analysis of him that I keep actually to the right of my board is mini Dallas Turner. I'm going to take a creative liberty here. I think the offense definitely could use another weapon, but I've been drafting Brandon Rice, not bad though. I've been taking Johnny Wilson to y'all for a hot minute. Let me know what you think about the edge rusher, because mini Dallas Turner pairing back up with someone who used to play with Dallas Turner makes sense. I'm actually going to draft Brandon Rice here. A 6'3", 210 pounds. He's actually quite nifty. I just don't think he generates consistent separation as well as maybe he should. But I think overall he fits a need on this team, and he pairs up actually quite well with Nico Collins. And now you get two guys over 6'3" who are very dynamic in terms of their movement skills. I just think Brandon Rice needs a little bit more refinement. At pick 60 for Buffalo, they moved up and selected their star defensive back in Cooper DeJean. I'm going to be looking at wide receiver here again. Man, I did kind of suck the life out of this because I love Ricky Pearsall, but I just don't think he'll end up being the Bills' second-round pick. Other positions that they might be looking at could go back-to-back safeties here. Like Kalen Bullock is incredible value. Just sometimes you have to just go back-to-back. We've seen it before. The Colts ended up going back-to-back edge rushers just a couple years ago. And, of course, that didn't work out. So maybe not the best example for me to bring up here. Linebacker definitely in the mix. But, just the wide receivers available, I don't see one that really excites me the way that it should. I just don't think that there's somebody here. Johnny Wilson doesn't strike me as a guy to pair very well there in Buffalo. So to speed things up, Jonah Ellis could be a really good edge rusher. I think it's a dark horse need for this team. I don't know why people aren't bringing that up either. Defensive interior, though, I have seen quite a few people getting on him about it. I'm going to go Roro here because I think he has that edge rusher flexibility that is extremely coveted for a player of his physique. Pick 61 for the Detroit Lions. We've drafted an edge rusher in Braylon Trice. At this pick, I think this is going to be the dark horse. This is going to be the guy who I move up pretty far. Cam Hart, he had an unbelievable Senior Bowl. Like, his talent was through the roof. I could just continue to hear people chanting for Cam. Now, it wasn't like he was a first-round quality player, but in a corner class that really didn't perform that well, he's somebody who could actually be a dark horse player, and he's going to be drafted pretty damn early. So Cam Hart out of Notre Dame is going to be my player. He's been number 2 to probably, I think he's actually my number 2 player next year, the boundary corner out of Notre Dame. I think his name is Jimmy Morrison. No, that's a center out of Pittsburgh years ago. Y'all know who I'm talking about. But Cam Hart was an elite number 2 corner and is going to be a great corner there for Detroit. Pick number 62 for the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, yes, I could have drafted Luther Ellis' son, but I'm not going to draft 2 edge rushers to y'all. Ended up drafting a wide receiver in Troy Franklin in round number 1. Correct. So with this selection, hard to pass on Patrick Paul. Lots of injuries that always end up adding up in this Ravens offensive line core. And I think it's worth it at this point. We're going to go to Houston to draft Patrick Paul. I just think the value is too good to pass on. Offensive tackle-wise, you can even kick him to guard if you need to. This is just a dude who's going to give you the best return on investment. Pick 63 for the Chiefs, drafted wide receiver with a trade-up in round number 1. Here in round number 2, I think defensive line, probably the position I go for. I mean, it's just the best position. But actually, you know what? I have a better one. I'm going to switch Johnny Wilson to tight end. With a 34-year-old Travis Kelce who's debating retirement, we're going to take a big swing on getting a 6'7", 240-pound burrito away tight end in Johnny Wilson. Pick 64 for the San Francisco 49ers. Moved back, ended up getting Kingsley Suamataia in the first. I think TJ Tampa is a little bit of more of their speed, so I think I actually will end up drafting TJ Tampa to the Niners. He's much lower on my board, but I do blend my board with realism when I do these. Pick 65 for the Panthers. So we ended up going after a wide receiver in the first round, A.D. Mitchell. Here at pick 65, if Frankie Luvu doesn't return, I do think linebacker is a sneaky position to target. We're not going to do that until we see that happen, though. I think edge rusher is just your best bang for your buck. I'm having guys who are in my top 30. Like, where's Jonah? He's at 26. Like, you can't pass on that anymore. Jonah Ellis will be the selection. Pick number 66 for the Arizona Cardinals. We've already gone after our star wide receiver in Keon Coleman, our star right tackle in Talise Fuaga, our star defensive interior in Jerzon Newton, and our star corner / defensive back in Kamari Lassiter. We've kind of covered all the bases. So looking at other positions we can go after, edge rusher certainly still on the table. You got guys like Marshawn Nealand, Xavier Thomas, as well as Adisa Isaac, who are great. Pretty sure Steve Lenton's not even in this class. I thought he transferred, so I don't know why he's still listed there. But that's another deep name that I would love to reintroduce. Interior offensive line-wise, kind of hard to say no to the dudes who are left on the board. There's some really, really good players here. And you got Christian Mahogany and Cooper Beebe here. I think Cedric Van Pran brings that versatility that will be, a little bit more coveted than the other two, because centers naturally, you can move to guard, in my opinion, better than you can move to center. So I'm going to go after that very unique value there in Cedric Van Pran. Pick number 67 for the Commanders. We've drafted 2 edge rushers, both Robinson, Chop, and Darius, as well as getting Amarius Mims in the first. So looking at the best choices now, I think linebacker is a very underrated position. Offensive line-wise, yeah, it does kind of thin out. You do have Javon Foster here, but he even had a pretty damn tough week. You could go after another receiving weapon because people are really honing in on the fact they want a receiving weapon. Tight end-wise, Ben Sinnott, good weapon to target down the board. Really good weapon. But I also think that defensive back should be a little bit better valued than maybe what it is. But interior offensive line, I love Chris Paul, but Cooper Beebe is here, and he's just so much superior. So we're going to be going after Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State. Veteran guard who is just not getting enough love. At pick 68 for the New England Patriots, we've drafted wide receiver and quarterback for him. I do think that this team should be trying to value another tackle. I just, I don't know who it's going to be. Christian Jones had some good reps in there. Javon Foster, he's still pretty damn solid. Blake Fisher is, a pretty damn solid dude. I think this is a great opportunity to be able to move back because I still have great players like Kalen Bullock, superstar safety out of USC, who's my number one safety, by the way, who is still on the board. I think that someone should move up for Kalen Bullock. So who needs a safety? Who needs one? We're going to do a fire sale here. I could see the Giants with Xavier McKinney being up for a contract being a great spot for a quick little move up. You could also see the Chargers being a dark horse team for a move up right there. I think they could definitely try to poach a really good safety. Other teams, the Bears. That's a dark horse position, man. That safety behind Eddie Jackson, like that spot's going to open up in 1 year, and you could potentially fill it right now. Other positions or other teams of note that could be looking for one of those star safeties definitely could be taking a quick peek here at the Colts. Blackman's up for a contract. Could always go to the Rams, the Steelers. Like all these teams could be in the mood. I think I'm going to take some creative liberties here with the Chicago Bears and just continue to have a Ryan Poles domination fest here. So for this range of a trade up, I know that we are like absolutely lacking picks. That's what kind of sucks. But I think 146. Well, actually, I think we're going to trade future draft capital. That doesn't make very much sense. We're going to trade a future fourth to get this pick. And also, it is in New England's best interest to start loading up on the future. With the Bears having so many future picks, this kind of makes sense. You could trade a future third and end up getting one of these picks, like maybe pick like 139 back. That's still pricey, though. So we're going to do that fourth round pick. The Bears move up and select somebody who they're going a year in advance, but Kalen Bullock. So we drafted our center, we drafted our wide receiver, we brought in our veteran edge rusher, and then we also got our quarterback. That's kind of the positions the Bears really need. At pick 69 for the Los Angeles Chargers, we ended up trading back, getting Junior Colson. We have Brock Bowers. Lots of really, really good moves so far. I do think that this team might be in the mood to go after one of their receivers in Roman Wilson at this point because he actually complements Quentin Johnston in the long run. So I'm actually going to go after Roman Wilson. Is it cheap to go helmet scouting? Yes, but I also think that with so many pieces of Michigan going there and Roman Wilson actually being a really talented receiver, it ends up making sense. At pick number 70, we got the Giants who traded up for Drake Maye. And then they also ended up selecting Jordan Morgan to be a star offensive lineman for them. I think this team actually lacks a true edge number 2, and Adisa Isaac would be a perfect addition for this team. Weapons-wise, though, you still could get Ricky Pearsall here. I just think that's better to spend your money in free agency at this point. I just don't see the value being there. So I'm actually going to go after a day one impact with a very smart player in Adisa Isaac. Pick 71 for the Arizona Cardinals. We've literally drafted everything known to man for them. So we're going to go running back because I do think this team could use just a little bit of extra kick in the rear. Bucky Irving is a every single down type of player. Great in the receiving game, great in the run game. Maybe not the most flashy guy in the world, but you've had a lot of success with, what's his name? Why am I forgetting? Connor. So I think that if you can get Connor to work, you can get Irving to work. Pick number 72 for the New York Jets. We've gone after tackle already and double checking who that tackle was. Pretty sure it's Olu Fashanu. It is. This is a great spot to test out a wide receiver move. I think Ricky Pearsall actually might be able to get enough respect to get drafted to this team. They need another receiver. They need another defensive interior. They might even need some extra help on the interior of the offensive line, but receiver is lacking pretty heavily. So Ricky Pearsall is going to be the choice. Pick 73 for the Detroit Lions. We've already drafted. Did we already go to interior offensive line for him? We did not. So we got Cam Hart as well as Braylon Trice. I'm actually going to, because Ragnow might retire, I'm going to go Bo Limmer here. He got trucked over by Tavondre Sweat, but we're just going to forget about that because he's actually had some really good reps as well. He's an elite tier right guard and a really solid center. I think that his future is at that right guard spot, but you have that versatility that should be valued a little bit higher than it is. Pick 74 for the Atlanta Falcons. We had a move up for a quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, in J.J. McCarthy. So we got J.J. McCarthy as well as Malik Neighbors. Yeah, I know, right? And so we're actually going to be looking at an edge rusher here. I'm looking at Xavier Thomas pretty heavily. Really like Marshawn Kneeland as well. Marshawn Kneeland fits a bigger physical profile, but I think Xavier Thomas, because of his like finesse and his overall speed build, I think it comps to Byron Young pretty damn well. So we're going to be going Xavier Thomas and having him go into Raheem Morris's system. Pick number 75 for the New England Patriots. This was part of that trade back with Chicago. Got wide receiver. Ended up getting quarterback as well. I think tackle is acceptable at this point. Christian Jones actually had a really, really solid week overall. He impressed me. So I'm actually going to go Christian Jones, who's even taking reps at right tackle. Pretty sure he was a full-time right tackle. So double checking that right here. Of course, thanks for not explaining anything. But 6'6", 321, actually had a really solid Senior Bowl week. One of those guys who actually might end up being taken a little bit earlier than expected. Pick 76 for the Denver Broncos. Ended up taking an edge rusher, if I'm not mistaken, in Dallas Turner in the first. So at this spot, could definitely see them going after a corner like Kalen Carson. You could even see Kalen King starting to slip into this point. Kalen King irritated the living hell out of me. He's still 65 on my board, but that's because of a little bit of love remaining, not because of what my eyes saw. Quarterback-wise, could see them trying to target another one of these guys. Not that big of a fan of that idea. Wide receiver, though, you got Xavier Worthy here. I just think that overlaps a little too much with Mims. That's just where I'm at. I don't really know if any other receivers have the proper build for a pick at 76, so I'm going to pass on that as well. We're actually going to go the corner route. We'll go Kalen Carson. As long as he doesn't go toe-to-toe with Keon Coleman, you're going to be fine. So you get your star DB as well as your star edge rusher. At pick 77 for the Washington Commanders, this was part of that initial trade. Could end up trading out of this spot as well, but I honestly think this is a prime opportunity to get an elite level linebacker who just has struggled with some injury history. Peyton Wilson will be that final puzzle piece to that defense. End up getting 2 elite edge rushers, 2 elite offensive linemen as well, Cooper Beebe and Marius Mims, and then now an elite tier linebacker that could totally flip the fortunes of this team in just one draft. Pick 78 for the Seattle Seahawks. We drafted a star interior offensive lineman in Jackson Powers Johnson in the first. Now, looking at the options available, I think an edge 2 wouldn't be a bad idea at all. I'd actually really like the potential of Marshawn Kneeland at 275 frame. Really good player. Actually know a buddy who is on his staff, so got to have a little bit of bias there as well. The question is, will a linebacker be taken before 81? I doubt it. So we're going to go Marshawn Kneeland a little bit early, but still a spectacular player. Pick 79 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Interior offensive line going to be the move. Christian Mahogany actually is an absolute beast. Maybe not as athletic as you might be hoping for. Actually, Drake Nugent's a little bit more up that category. Drake Nugent, he is a little bit on the lighter side, but if you move him to guard, I think he'll be a little better. Very smart player, very consistent. I think that's someone who deserves a little bit more respect as well. At pick 80 for the Cincinnati Bengals, we've gone after tight end as well as a defensive interior. This is where I actually am going to take a project in Blake Fisher. He just needs a little bit more developing time. Maybe get your right tackle back, Jonah Williams, for one more year, but let Blake Fisher develop because he has great overall measurables, and I think he's going to be a great tackle if you give him the time to develop. Pick number 81 for the Seahawks is going to be a linebacker. Y'all know it. It's going to be a linebacker. Jeremiah Trotter fits a position that, it definitely is open, but I love a Def 1 Olufosho. I think he was the best linebacker there at the Senior Bowl. 6'1", 240. That's the type of guy who I want on my squad. Keep him there in Washington. Pick 82 for the Indianapolis Colts. We've already gone after wide receiver. Did we go Brennan Rice? Oh, we went Jalen Polk. I love Brennan Rice so much. But we went Jalen Polk. And in the first round, we went after Terry and Arnold. At this point, I think Christian Mahogany to play that right guard spot, he's just an absolute animal in the run game. This is good value. He tore his ACL last year, but this year he's actually been one of the more underrated interior offensive linemen on the board, and I want to give him some respect as well. Pick 83 for the Los Angeles Rams. We've gone after edge rusher as well as corner. I think this team will try to look for something on the offensive side. Javon Foster actually is really talented on the move. Could definitely see him being one of those picks that teams, especially like the Rams, would love to implement. That actually might be the way I go. He's the next best tackle. Dominic Puny's had some good reps there for sure, but we're going to go after Javon Foster. At pick 84, the Steelers are back. So we ended up getting Justin Fields. That's the crazy twist. But then we also ended up getting Kool-Aid McKinstry in round number 1, which we do love that. Could end up getting Jeremiah Trotter Jr. here to help out our linebacking core. The value's proper. Center-wise, we don't really have anybody left. And that's okay. You can go to free agency for that shit too. So I'm actually going to go for that linebacker route. We'll go Jeremiah Trotter here because I think in reality he will be going later, day 3. Pick 85 for the Houston Texans. Could go Braden Fiske and just pair him up with like just everything we've done. But this is where I ended up taking Brendan Rice. I think tight end's kind of a good position to look at here. I haven't given them enough respect in these drafts. And you got Theo Johnson, who I think is extremely underrated, but also Ben Sinnott. And Ben Sinnott's after the catch ability feels very similar to the style of tight end that I think works very well in this offense. Pick 86 for the Cleveland Browns went after Donovan Peoples-Jones replacement there in Devontae Walker. You have Xavier Worthy here. I think that we're just going to double down. We're going to go 2 wide receivers because Xavier Worthy fits a completely different profile. Yeah, you can start conflicting with Elijah Moore, but at some point, it's okay to have more weapons than less. At pick 87, probably would have been my pick actually for the Dallas Cowboys. This is a good opportunity to go for a running back. And, Audric Estime has that power that I think I was trying to get with Zach Charbonnet last year. Of course, Zach went way before I ever thought he would. But Audric Estime has just that overall balance to his game that I think feels very similar to what an Ezekiel Elliott brought to the table just years ago. At pick 88, we got the Packers who have taken Trey Benson as well as 2 defensive backs. Not many other positions for this team to really target. I could see them going after another wide receiver because that's exactly what this team does. And, Malachi Corley being an after-the-catch beast could be, something that they look for. But you got, interior offensive lineman here. Oh, man, the interior offensive line, apart from Zach Center, just because he has injuries, not looking too great. Could see Dominic Puny being a rotational interior offensive lineman and tackle. I think that his overall play at the Senior Bowl was actually pretty damn commendable. So we'll take Dominic Puny here. At pick 89 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we got a really solid pick so far. We got Leatu Latu as well as Christian Haynes. Now, another player I would love for this team is Braden Fiske. Just pairing him up with like what you got in the last first round in Kalijah Kancey, that'd be a ridiculous amount of explosion on the defensive interior. But other positions of note, I could look at wide receiver here and just continue to get depth players who can develop like Jalen McMillan, or you can even look at the linebackers. The linebackers that are available, I actually like Tommy Eichenberg quite a bit at this point. And one of my dark horse players here is Curtis Jacobs. He was one of those guys who I really fell in love with. But the guy who I actually want to take a shot on here, and I think the Buccaneers have the time and development for it, is Tyron Hopper. I think he's still a top 64, top 70 player on my board. And dude's just a freak athlete who's a missile to the ball. Needs to learn how to tackle a little bit better, but he's also an elite edge rusher, so you actually get even more pass rushing help with him. Pick 90 for the Arizona Cardinals. Could go a linebacker here as well. But I actually am going to go defensive interior twice. I got Brandon Dorlus here, McKinley Jackson, as well as Braden Fiske. I'm going to get the size of McKinley Jackson to pair up with Jerzon Newton and McKinley at 320, Jerzon at sub 300. Pick 91 for the Green Bay Packers. Again, could go back-to-back running backs here, but I'm actually going to look at those linebackers. And I think Tommy Eichenberg is just so consistently reliable that it's worth it at this point. Pick 92 for the Detroit Lions. We've gone after corner. We've gone after interior offensive line with Bo Limmer, as well as edge rusher. I'm actually going to go Braden Fiske because I love how his skill set comps pretty damn closely to what Kalijah did last year. Still needs some help on the defensive interior. That guy's going to bring it. Pick 93 for the Baltimore Ravens. Might actually go after another edge rusher here. You got Javon Solomon, who's a dark horse player. I'm so glad PFF loves him because he has some really good reps. He's just going to be one of those dudes who I want to give a little bit more props to. And it's a dark horse guy that the Ravens rarely go after the dark horses. They go after the fallers, but still a great move. Pick 94 for Kansas City. Could see them developing an offensive tackle here. Didn't really see anybody else, though, that really surprised me. So with that being said, we're going to cancel that out. Got Johnny Wilson as well as Brian Thomas. So we still need defensive interior. You got Makai Wingo. You got Brandon Dorless. But I'm actually going to go after Michael Hall Jr., who had himself a week there in Mobile, just a little bit on the smaller side. At pick 95 for the San Francisco 49ers, I think this might be a good opportunity to take a shot on another edge rusher who could be extremely developmental. That being said, not many of them to be noted. I do think that the Niners could be in the market to test out somebody a little bit freakier. And I'm kind of dying to try to take Christian Boyd to this team because we all know they take guys that we don't think they should take at that spot. They take guys pretty damn early. Christian Boyd is a monster from the East-West Shrine Bowl. I'm going to give him a little bit of love. I am. It's pick 95. We can give it a little bit of slack. Christian Boyd out of Northern Iowa. Pick number 96 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've already addressed, didn't we get after offensive interior? Yeah, Drake Nugent. And then we've also gone after, what do we do in the last round? Ladd McConkey. And then, of course, in the first round, Quinton Mitchell. So wide receiver, corner, as well as, why am I tripping? Did I say offensive line? Yeah, Drake Nugent. So with this selection, I think edge rusher still is in that realm of possibility. Could go after Austin Booker here. I don't really see many others who had that proper build that Balky likes to look for. So could even go for Zach Center here. Honestly, you could say him and develop him for a year. He's a very talented run blocker, and he's just recovering from a leg fracture. You know, he was supposed to be a round 2 pick, and you pair him up with Drake Nugent. You resolve both issues with a great value player. Pick 97 for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm debating going Mike Sainristil still here. Our other picks so far have been Jermaine Burton, as well as Tyler Guyton, as well as Edgerrin Cooper. And I think I actually want to get someone who could be very similar to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, an absolute lightning bolt. And Mike Sainristil is very, very undisciplined. But my God, is he fun. And he brings that energy that I don't think this secondary has. So we're going to go Mike Sainristil to this team. Pick number 98 for the San Francisco 49ers. Again, this would have been a good time to go Christian Boyd rather than now. But looking at the options available, I'm actually going to trade out. I think this is a mock draft with trades anyways, so we're going to trade out. You got Jacob Cowing here, who's just a really, really solid receiving weapon. Someone who's great in the slot. And I think the Carolina Panthers could actually use a receiver like that, but other teams could as well. I think New England would be blessed by adding in one more weapon. Cardinals could get a nice speed threat if they want to. Chargers already got their weapon. You know, New York still hasn't gotten theirs, if we think about it. I don't think New York, I'm trying to remember. We got Disa Isaac. Yeah, we haven't gotten a receiving weapon yet. I think this is the prime opportunity for the Giants to move up. And I think it will require maybe a future 4th. And then I'll actually have the Niners toss in one of their picks in here at pick 210. Just to give New York a couple more. So New York ends up moving up, and they actually end up selecting a wide receiver in Jalen McMillan. That's someone who could complement the receiving core well enough. That's worth moving up for. Pick 99 for the Las Vegas Raiders. This was part of that trade back, that compensatory pick that we ended up getting. Defensive interior is kind of key for this team, and I actually want to develop Mason Smith out of LSU. He's 310 pounds. Dude just still is finding his role for himself, but that's a guy who's going to end up being worth a 2nd-round pick at the end of the day. Pick 100 for the Minnesota Vikings, and ending off this draft, I'm actually going to be selecting Brandon Dorless here. I'm not going to take too much of y'all's time. Great defensive interior player. This team needs defensive interior help as well. So that is going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching and showing the support that y'all always do. I love y'all. See you on the far side.